You hear me? Hi, I'm Mick. I'm a Luxembourgish illustrator, designer. I work in Luxembourg as well. So I'll be your first speaker tonight. I'll be presenting mostly my illustration work, but some other stuff as well. And as said, the name of my presentation is going to be "Just because it's traced doesn't mean you're cheating," which you can't see because of a technical problem. But anyway, I'll let the images do the talking instead of the text. So let's get started. So yeah, a couple of details about me. I'm 28 years old. I studied in the UK in Bournemouth, which was a pretty decent university. Quite challenging, so that's good. I studied illustration actually. I came from a sort of graphic design background, doing graphic design in secondary school here in Luxembourg, but decided I'd go into illustration once I got into university, which was a bit of a funny story because I pretty much went there not really expecting what to do. I was actually set on doing graphic design, but I don't know, I just saw some people doing illustration and I thought, hey, shit, this looks great. So I went with that, but hello?
Can you speak a bit louder?
A bit louder. I'll try to, but I'm not very good at speaking loudly. Okay, so where was I? Yes, university, illustration. Yeah, as said, coming from a graphic design background, I was sort of bad at illustration to begin with. The first couple of months were a whole lot of faffing about and not really knowing what I was supposed to do. And I just sort of at one point had that, how do you say, déclic in French. If no one knows the word, please. If not, well, fine. But yeah, so I thought, okay, let's use computers for illustration, which was probably a wiser choice than always trying to draw stuff. So this was one of the first attempts at sort of using computers for doing collage work. But after that, I went into vector graphics, which helped me out quite a bit. And yeah, that's a sort of long story for another time. But so yes, let's start with vector illustration, which is one of two types of illustration I'll be talking about this evening. So once I was finished with university in 2007, I got this project for the Muhlen, which was the first, well, wait, let me get my words. It's basically a series of postcards for the Muhlen, which were meant to showcase the Luxembourgish landscape in a sort of different way than just the usual, yeah, you know, Petrus Valley and that sort of stuff. So yeah, basically that was the brief, do something different than just the Petrus Valley and that sort of stuff. So obviously I had to start and take photos of the Petrus Valley and work from that, because that's just my thought process. More people, yay. And I'm going to take out my cheat sheets because I'm already getting lost in what I was supposed to say. Sorry, bear with me for a second. Yeah, so that was pretty much the first major project here in Luxembourg, which sort of, let's say, put me on the map, so to speak. And yeah, it's just very basic, taking Luxembourgish landscapes and adding these sort of funny looking creatures, monsters, robots, that sort of stuff. And yeah, it was, from what I heard, fairly successful. And well, even more so in the fact that it did land me some other jobs afterwards. For example, well, that wasn't a job really, that was for an exhibition here in Luxembourg, which was called Infographism at the Exit 07, which was about showcasing your activities of a given month in, I think it was 2010, in a sort of graphic way. So yeah, my stomach activity during the month of August, heavy month, as you can see. So yeah, it's all basic, well not basic, it's all done in Illustrator, so it's fully vectorized compared to the other one, which was a bit of Photoshop as well. And yeah, I think that one's fairly straightforward. Well, not really, but too hard to explain. And another one, well, that one came out afterwards, which was a project done with a Luxembourgish agency called Vidal et Glösner, who did those custom designs for Boffading for the Tour de France last year. Last year, yes. And that was sort of a collaborative project between Vidal et Glösner and 3 illustrators. So among my design, there was also Sumo, the graffiti artist, and Roger Leiner, the guy who draws Super Jump. And yeah, so the brief was actually to take the three shirts from the Tour de France and illustrate them in a sort of funky way for the bottles. So the one that was actually picked for mine was the dotted shirt for the best climber. That was sort of the one I started off with because it was more, I don't know, I was inspired by that one to just draw this sort of Yeti creature on his bike just going up a hill. The other ones came afterwards, which were also decent, but I don't know, that one stood out for me, and actually, luckily enough, that was the one that got picked for the bottles, so quite happy about that. And yes, what else? And some more illustration stuff, which some people of you might have seen. One at least has seen it and knows it, which are illustrations for the Luxembourg magazine, for a column at the end of the magazine on, well, it's not really web development, it's more on taking websites apart and explaining what makes them successful and what works and that sort of stuff. So yes, basically this whole vector drawn approach is fun for me to do because it's, well, the results are always a bit faster to get to, and it's also the, how to put this, it's more commercial, let's put it that way. It's the sort of stuff people usually like to see, and that's, so usually if I get some sort of illustration brief, I'll try to go for this sort of stuff because it's, as opposed to the other style I have, which will come next, it's just a bit easier to sell and basically make it look good. I mean, just give it a better finished polish for the end result. But I also do have a different illustration style, which is a bit more personal and poetic in a way. More serious stuff, where well, it's become a sort of combination between the two now. Usually it's a bit of photographic work, not my own, but photos, a bit of vector drawings and collage and that sort of stuff. Yes, so this was a personal project where I just decided on putting animal heads on old Civil War photos, which turned out pretty nicely. Made a series of them. A couple of those were published in the Désir magazine, and yeah, it's just a different approach. It's a bit, well, I would say it's more serious, but it isn't really. It's animal heads on people. So yeah, but it's just nice to have this sort of different style and basically be able to, for me now, have these two categories I can go back to and at least not get bored by my own work, which does tend to happen to illustrators quite often. It's all about being able to, well, you know, keep it fresh for yourself and stay motivated and not start thinking, God, if I do one more of these, I'll kill myself. So I forgot what comes next. Yes, so celestial, what's going on? Does this leave?
Yeah, I hope so.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, so a bit more. I think it's because of me sort of whacking the table all the time. Another personal project, which was also done in a sort of similar style, but mix of collage and vector work and photos and a bit of type this time around. Well, I had type in the other one as well. So yeah, as you can see, these are sort of, well, there's not much drawing in them or anything, so actually the next couple of images might make a bit more sense with my the title of my talk. So let's get to them. Not this one. This one is still a bit computer generated. Sorry, but let's kick it off with Wolf Machine. That's another personal thing I did. Just, I don't know, someone, I was talking to someone about the band Wolf Mother sometime, and well, there was a sort of brain fart, and they call it Wolf Machine, and I thought, hey, that's a good theme for an illustration, so I just sort of went with that and decided to do this sort of mechanical wolf. And even though this is all done in Illustrator, it's actually based on a photo of a snarling wolf. But the thing is, as an illustrator and even in uni and that sort of stuff, I was always kind of confronted with the idea of, if you don't draw something by hand or if you retrace it or whatever, that you're not actually an illustrator, which is a bit of a crap idea, but well, whatever. As a student, you still sort of get haunted by that when you have other people saying, hey, yeah, but you just did that in Illustrator, that took you like 5 minutes. Well, that's not really true, is it? I mean, let's get to the details. You have this one. So you start off with the wolf in this case, which was a photo I found on the internet. Some of you people who like memes might know that one, Insanity Wolf. Still, looks cool. So I decided to take that photo and start basically retracing it, but using these very mechanical parts like gears and saw blades and stuff. But still, I mean, okay, it's traced, but you still have to actually come up with the drawing at the end of the day, and then afterwards take it back into Illustrator and do the whole thing clean, because I think you'll agree this one looks a bit rough. Well, so yeah, it's always about this sort of a thing with lost my thoughts there. Yeah, tracing basically. I mean, people always say it's not really that great or anything, but I think as an illustrator it's not really any different from when, I don't know, let's say web developers use found bits of code, or I'm a complete web novice, so bear with me if I say something really, really stupid about web development. If I do, don't feel offended, I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, if you use bits of code, or if as a private user you use, for example, themes for your website or whatever, so it's just another technique really. So it's just nice to point out to people from time to time that even if it is done in Illustrator and it's all computer work, that it doesn't necessarily take any less time to do it, or I'm gonna say skill, which is gonna sound really, really conceited, but so at the end of the day, if you like the end result or not, that's another matter, but it does take time after all. And yeah, so let's take another example. Found a photo of this owl, which I sort of liked, and the process was actually sort of the same. I just printed out the photo, traced God knows how many layers by hand, with my pencil, scanned it back in and tried to get the end result looking good. So, I mean, if you look at it closely, you can see that there's way too many layers for sanity in there. But, so yeah. Let's see where I am. Ah, yes, that's a good point. The other thing is with, well, vector work, for example, is that as opposed to handmade stuff, you're sort of given a certain tolerance for, let's say, cosmetic mistakes, because people say, okay, it's a one-off, you're allowed to basically mess up a couple of parts, but that's the worst thing about, well, vector drawings, that people sort of expect them to be perfect. So you can't really just say, okay, this part doesn't look as good, well, never mind. You usually have to end up getting it done and basically driving yourself insane to get it done properly. So yes. And that's a couple of other examples that were basically traced from photos. Afterwards, it's always a bit of, I don't know, mixture between different elements. And, well, the one on the right was actually just traced, but I don't know, I felt like drawing something completely by hand for once. That's just something which you might have read in the short intro text. I've been working since 2007, but in the meantime I've decided I should do more hand-drawn stuff about 20 times or something. But I always come back to the combination of both. And another kind of tracing, which doesn't really count as cheating either if you take it that way, but if some people knew that that had been traced this way, they would still think it's cheating, obviously. But yes, this was done for the museum again. It's the wall in their shop. I was given a blank canvas pretty much to do whatever I wanted to, so I decided to do this sort of god panda with antlers and forearms, and he's made of gold and holding planets and whatever. So that one actually, well, same process again, start off by drawing with pencil and then into Illustrator and that sort of stuff. Sort of pushed further this time around because, excuse me, well, obviously it had to go on a 4-meter long wall. So started off by projecting it, drawing the outlines with pencil, so I knew where to keep my limits. So I could actually, after 2 days, not continue using the projector, which was sort of useful. So yeah, all painted by hand in the end, so that took a fair amount of time. So you can sort of see, not really, but sort of see the comparison between the vector drawing and the finished painted mural.